we'll go ahead and come back on the record, Nancy. And just for everyone's understanding, we are now live on Facebook. Is that where it is?
We're on YouTube today.
YouTube. So all your actions and everything is being broadcast. So Portneuf Water and Soil Conservation, you requested a meeting with us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did. My name is Kevin Coster. I'm currently chairman of the Portneuf Soil and Water Conservation District. With me today is Mr. Dave Gallivan, our legal counsel.
You are more than welcome to come up.
Dave Jackson, the board treasurer, and Callie Johnson, administrative assistant. The purpose of our request is to ask you to please reconsider your motion to deny county funds to the Portneuf Soil and Water Conservation District. What will happen, and it will happen within the next week, is if those funds are not received by June 30th, we're not eligible for any state match, which could be another $30,000. Between those two appropriations, that constitutes a huge portion of our operating budget. And so we want to explain that situation. Mr. Gallivan will go through where we are with some litigation issues, and then please, if you have any concerns, we'd like to know what your concerns are so we could possibly address those concerns. We've tried to do everything that was asked of us at our prior meeting with you folks.
Okay. Yeah, I thought before I said anything, I don't want to miss the mark of what's on your mind, so I think it would be helpful for us to know what your concerns are so that we can maybe rifle shot it and direct our remarks to what your concern is.
Our concern, Dave, lies with the procedures followed in the last bid process. We've had several people complain that fair bid practices were not followed, and that's what the investigation we asked. And so that's our biggest concern, is that as a tax-paying entity, or using taxpayer funds in something like that, we need to make sure that all the legal laws, all the laws were followed appropriately.
Okay. So, yeah, so I can speak to that. That's an allegation that's been made. But I think my understanding, who's Mr. Redford? Right here.
Okay, now,
I
your
just
discussion is with us.
I know, I just wanted to make sure, so
Okay.
I'm just saying he's made an allegation and filed a tort claim with the district, and so that's where I'm coming from. I don't know about other people. I'm only aware of Mr. Redford's complaint. And then, and so we are trying to respond to that. We've tried to come up with a proposal that would enable the project to be split, because about the same time we received the notice of tort claim, the property owner for one half of the project, or maybe a little bit more than one half of the project, Stephen Criddle, revoked his consent to go upon the land, and so that meant we could not continue on with the current contractor, and we tried to work out a proposal between the two bidders. There were only two bidders at the bidding opening, or at the bid process in November, and so it's those two that have been competing with each other right along, and so we tried to work out something with them. That has not been successful. It's just among the attorneys representing each of the parties, me with the district and the attorney for Mr. Redford and the attorney for Mr. McKee. So what we have tried to do is initiate a mediation rather than wait for a lawsuit to be filed by either Mr. McKee or Mr. Redford. We are seeking the help of the mediator to see if we can reach a resolution of the dispute. and move forward. So we're doing all we can. Just because there's been an allegation made does not mean that there is a fault. Anybody can sue, anybody can make a complaint, and we have investigated. I attended a board meeting, we went through the allegations with reference to Mr. Foster, Mr. Tillotson, asked questions. They denied it, they explained what happened, and we think that there are some good defenses of misunderstanding perhaps. But so we are in the pickle we're in, we're trying to resolve it. And so, but if you have one more detail, I can, but I know our time's limited, so I don't want to keep going.
Well, and we have zero jurisdiction over this board. They're elected officials, and we as county commissioners have zero. If there is a wrongdoing, then it would turn over to the prosecutor's office. And we don't know what is going on. We haven't investigated it. We haven't went ourselves. But like Commissioner Huff says, individuals would come forward and said that actions they didn't feel were right in this bidding process. I'll just tell you where I'm at right now. As long as there's a lawsuit or litigation going on and stuff, I haven't really changed my mind about funds. And we won't make a decision here today. Commissioner Tubby is not here. Something of this magnitude, all three commissioners will be here to make that decision, in my opinion.
Where I sit is I've read through some of the minutes of previous meetings, board meetings and stuff, and I feel like there's enough questions that I'm kind of with Commissioner Moser on this, that I don't know if I want to go forward with our funding as presently constituted. However, in the interest of time, if you guys are willing to do a rebid the whole thing, because I'm assuming the two people involved have all their stuff together, go through the process, make sure there's no questions, then I would be more than willing to reconsider where I'm at with the funding, because we're talking about funding for this year and next year, and with the questions that are surrounding it, that's kind of where I'm at.
Suggest something. I mean, that's certainly a possibility, and that would come up with the mediation as a possible solution. And yet I don't know whether all three of the parties would agree to that. And we'll have to see when we get to the mediation. It's scheduled for July 13th, but that's after the deadline for the matching funds coming from the state. And so my suggestion is rather than punish the district now over allegations that we have not been able to present our side, and as you mentioned, you're not the judge and the jury on this, and we think that if you find that there has been some wrongdoing and that finally comes out, that the punishment that you have in mind maybe could be made the next year. But this year, it seems unfair to be able to punish them over these allegations when we're making every effort to try to resolve the problem.
And I'm still at the point that until Commissioner.
Well, I know you can't make a decision today, but I just would like you to keep that in mind. And again, if there's any information that we can present to you today that would help you in terms of what we're doing, what's been happening, and so on, we would be happy to.
Well, is the board willing to reconsider putting it out for rebid again and expediting that process?
We have considered that. We presented an option to the two contractors to split the project. One of them would take half, the other would take the other half. Neither one of them were very receptive to that idea. Under our board bid policy, anything over $25,000 has to be rebid. We're not real sure how that works with State Department of Lands. But that is an option. We did talk to the contractors about, so neither one of them were very receptive. So Yeah, we're trying to work through this as the very best that we can. The thing that troubles me is we've had an unblemished relationship with Bannock County for over 40 years. We have an allegation with no evidence whatsoever. Mr. Galpin has reviewed our minutes of our meetings. Everything seems to be up to standard. We followed the bid process. Bids were open in a public meeting. They were sealed bid. We don't know what else to do at this point, but it seems to me significantly unfair to punish a 40-year relationship on an allegation with no evidence that anyone could have made. Somehow that troubles me.
Let me just say one more point to kind of direct your question. As I said, that's an option that the board is willing to consider. But I don't know that it will be accepted by both of the other bidders without a claim, because just in the communications I've had with the attorneys from each side, I know that one of the attorneys will be demanding some damages from the county if we were to automatically do that. I think if that's the decision that's made, I think the board would be willing to come to that conclusion. But I think it's going to take the mediation process maybe to get there, to the mediator to help both other parties to agree to, if that's the solution, to agree to that solution. So I think we're in good faith here going forward to resolve this problem that has come upon the district, that they need the funds to continue to operate.
And I appreciate what Commissioner Huff says, but to me, we don't have the authority to tell you what to do. We just have to make up our mind how we feel, rather because there is an allegation, whether we feel comfortable in moving forward or we don't. I mean, that's where this board is. You guys and how you handle the contractors and stuff, we have no say in that.
No, we're not asking you to say we understand that. We're just asking you to consider the funding, and if you find that there's been some wrongdoing, that there's still an opportunity to withhold funds next year. But this year it's critical for them, and that we think, we're optimistic that ultimately this matter will be successfully resolved. But in the meantime, if you withhold the funds, then the funds from the state are also going to not be forthcoming, and the district's going to be in a real pickle.
But if you had some work done, wouldn't you receive funds from the state? If you're able to get some of that work done, couldn't you bill the state and get operating funds?
There's a 90-day lag period between the way that the project works. They have to complete a given segment, an area project, and then an invoice is submitted by the contractor to the district. We submit that invoice to the State Department of Lands, and it could get to 90 days. But those are administrative funds. The funds we receive from you folks and from the state go to the general operations of the board. In the past, we've tried to use our administrative monies for conservation projects within Bannock County. For example, we recently did a windbreak sound barrier drip irrigation system at Conner Academy. We did one 2 years ago at Grace Lutheran. We paid for the floating dock on the Lava Trails project with funds generated from administrative work. The funds we receive from you folks through the general operation of the district. It's that therein lies the difference. Yes, we will be receiving some administrative
Work for free,
funds. What we're up against right now is with the extreme heat and dry conditions, we daren't let anybody even go up in there and start those because there's an extreme fire danger. So the project, more than likely, regardless of what happens, there probably won't be any work started up there until I'm guessing the 1st of October. We won't receive any administrative money back from the State Department lands until probably end of December.
So my question is, why has there not been any work done so far when there could have been work done? Because the bid was awarded back in November.
There was some work done, and the contractor wasn't getting it done to our specifications. He was waiting on another piece of equipment, so we shut the project off because of safety concerns. And that's why we stopped the project in place, and then everything else hit the fan. Commissioner, how you mentioned?
One other thing too to add to that, there was a gap between November and April because the contract wasn't let until April. And
Right.
why don't you explain that to me?
Yeah, there was a gap. We actually let the contracts out in November, but we didn't receive the MOU from the State Department of Lands and the landowner permission until the first part of April. So then we were gonna start the 2nd of April. And that was why there was such a lag period between when the contracts were awarded and when the project actually started. The other concern was with the winter weather, the independent road district wasn't really excited about us moving heavy equipment up the roads in muddy and wet conditions. So those are things that happen beyond our control. Commissioner, if you mentioned a few minutes ago, you had reviewed some of the minutes and you had some concerns. Is there something we can address to try to eliminate those concerns or address those concerns?
I'm going to defer to legal on that. We've had Mr. Trammell look at some of that stuff. And Brian, what's your thoughts?
Oh, I would have no comment on that at this point.
What?
Sorry.
Well, I just have concerns about some of the things that I've read that somewhat contradict the testimony you gave in the previous meeting. And I would also say that you're going to have some salary savings coming up here in the next couple of months. So I'm sticking with Commissioner Moser at this point in time, that we need to visit with Commissioner Tubby, see where he's at, and then make a decision. And then if you guys can make some phone calls and everybody says we would accept a rebid situation, then that would weigh on my decision. And save you some mediation costs.
Once again, not to repeat myself, but we made that proposal. The current contractor who was awarded the bid said if we were to split the contract, then he would be filing a lawsuit.
Okay, but
So because he already has the contract.
Doesn't sound to me like you've offered a rebid situation. It sounded to me like you offered to split the contract, which is not a rebid. And
That's correct.
Callie, is that correct?
We offered to split the contract to try to keep everybody as happy as we could and to satisfy a disgruntled landlord.
So the offer that was made was that CR Fence would work on Steve Criddle's lands because Steve Criddle wouldn't allow McKee construction on there, and we would move, so he would get that portion of the project, which is roughly half, maybe slightly more, and then allow McKee construction onto the village of Downey, and they had already signed a landowner consent to do that. And my understanding, both of them said no. We didn't, I don't think, officially offer a rebid option.
Let me ask this, if we were to make that proposal to Mr. McKee, I think that would be something that I can't speak to, Mr. Bedford now, but I think that maybe if he would go along with that rebidding, I don't know for sure. But if we were to make that proposal to both of them, if either one of them rejected that, would that change your mind?
If you were to make that proposal and either one of them rejected a complete rebidding of the process, because that would reset the table and make sure it was done fair to everybody's specifications, I would be happy with that, because then that's on them. They were offered the opportunity to go through the process the correct way.
I will get out a letter to their attorney today, and we'll make that proposal to them.
You okay with that?
And part of your concern about why any work wasn't continued is that one landowner pulled his consent. The contractor hadn't received the large mulching head for his excavator yet, so we were reluctant to start him on a new area until they had the proper equipment, and so everything just kind of.
Well, let me put it up there. So what we would do is, and our, right, I say, the subject, that's the proposal is made, we have two of the board members at the county commissioners meeting. We would have to have it ratified by full board to do that. We'd have a special meeting to do it. We'd also have to have the consent of Mr. Criddle that if it turned out that Mr. McKee again was the successful bidder, he would allow McKee on to try to do the work again. And so if those conditions were met, then we would go through the rebidding process. And we'd have time to do it. It could be done, because Kevin was saying, the work really can't start again until the fire season is over in October, so we would have time to do that. So that's, I'd be happy to do that.
As long as the table was set fairly, then I would be willing to reconsider my position.
Okay.
I can't speak for Commissioner Mulder or Commissioner Tubby, but I would rethink mine.
So, well, like I say, we're not gonna vote on it right now. This is something that Commissioner Tubby, I want him here. We could put it on the agenda for Tuesday.
Would you expect to be able to have an answer for us?
I'll tell him that we gotta know by before Tuesday, so.
And to me, if it's gone in good faith and offered it,
Okay.
that's an option, I mean, to talk about on Tuesday.
Okay.
You want me to send, Samuel a copy by letter?
That would be wonderful, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to work out any reasonable compromise as best we could. It just troubles me that with the relationship you've had with the county commissioners, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of trust because of an unfounded allegation based, and that's going up against 40 years of successful communication.
But it's a serious allegation.
I want you to know that we appreciate what the Portneuf Soil and Conservation Group does. And like I said, we've always agreed with that, with what's going on. But if something comes before us, we feel like we have an obligation to investigate it. But we are limited on what we can do as an investigation. So that's why we're asking you. But to be quite honest with you, your demeanor today was a lot different than it was the last time you came in and talked to us.
How so? Tell me what I did wrong the last time.
No, last time you come in, you says, you know, I feel like this and this, and now you're saying, there's no proof, there's no nothing, we didn't do anything wrong, you guys are causing problems for us. That's what I feel.
No, sir, we're not suggesting you're causing problems. What we're suggesting is you're basing your decision on an unsubstantiated allegation. That there is absolutely no evidence towards that. We've reviewed our minutes, we reviewed the bid policy, and we don't feel like we made a mistake. Simply because someone else is disgruntled about it, we're being penalized, and Bannock County's going to be penalized.
Well,
I think at this point, it's irrelevant whether we made a mistake or whether we didn't. I think what we need to do is march forward. We need to see if we can't meet the requests of the commissioners and, see if we can stop what we've been doing wrong and start doing things right.
Agreed.
Okay. And that was the attitude you had last time you came in here.
We want to.
Well, and we still want to move forward, Mr. Chairman. I'm just extremely troubled with the allegation that we did something wrong in the process. We reviewed everything, Mr. Galtrant reviewed the minutes, the procedures that went on during the bid opening. We find no fault. And that's what you folks asked us to do the last time we met, was go through, review that with an outside source. We've tried to do everything that was requested of you at our last meeting, and we're still nowhere.
And we have a commissioner that did read the minutes, and he had a concern.
So, if you do the rebid,
Have not read the minutes. It's not part of these minutes. It hasn't been part of our discussion, your minutes and stuff, so. Welcome.
It's been a wet day, sorry.
Well,
Good.
I think what we need to do is just march forward and we need to try to address the request that you made today.
Well, and if we receive that letter and Tuesday, I go down and have them put it on the agenda for Tuesday that we can talk about it, then Commissioner Covey will be there, we'll inform him about what's going on and we can vote on it then, whether we give you funds this year or not.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
With that being said, we're recessed till 1:30.